Students, I hope you are enjoying these audio revision lectures. Please drop in a message on my WhatsApp number. It would really mean a lot to me. In today's episode, we shall discuss the remaining provisions of consideration. We shall start by discussing the concept of stranger to contract and its exceptions. Then we will also discuss section 25, validity of agreement without consideration. Both these concepts are very important and they are very frequently asked in the exam. You can expect case-based questions as well as theory questions from these topics. So let's get started.
You are listening to Law Ka Audionama by CA Preeti Agarwal, Simplifying Law.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Law Ka Audionama with me, CA Preeti Agarwal. We have been discussing all the essential elements one by one. So up till now we discussed offer, acceptance. In my previous episode I started consideration. So these are all the elements of a valid contract. We are going to discuss each one in detail. Now, up till now we have discussed what is consideration, definition of consideration, and the essential elements of consideration. In today's episode, we are going to discuss suit by third party, that is whether stranger to contract can sue, and what are the circumstances wherein the stranger can sue. So these are exceptions. And we are also going to discuss section 25. These are contracts which are valid even without consideration. So let's get started. The first concept is doctrine of privity of contract. Privity means privacy. So only the parties to the contract can sue each other. Stranger to contract cannot sue. So according to the doctrine of privity, when two persons have entered into a contract, only they have the right to sue each other. Stranger to contract cannot sue. So if the contract is between X and Y, only they can file a case against each. Now over here, X has given loan to Y and Y has given that same amount to Z. Now over here, let's say for example that Z failed to pay the amount to Y and therefore Y could not repay the money to X. X filed a case against Z. Can X sue Z? No. Why no? Because X is a stranger to contract between Y and Z. Y has a contract with Z, so only Y can sue Z. X is a stranger to contract. So Y will file a case against Z, recover the money, and then pay it to. Another example. X owes 25 lakh rupees to Y. He doesn't have money, so he sells his house to Z. Z promises to pay that money to Y, saying that he lives near my house, I will pay it to him. But he fails. So, can Y sue Z? No, Y cannot sue Z because he is a stranger to the contract between X and Z. If Z fails to pay the money to Y, X will file a case because there is a contract between X and Z, X and Y. So if Z is not paying the money, X will file a case because there is a contract between X and Z. So X can sue, not Y. But what if? Let's do a variation here. What if Z gives an acknowledgement to Y? Okay, he gives acknowledgement that listen Y, I am holding the money for you. He is giving acknowledgement that I am holding the money for you. Whenever you reach home, let me know, I will bring the money. So when he gives acknowledgement, he is considered as agent of Y. And yes, we can file a case against our agent. So here Y can sue because Z is acting as his agent and we can sue our agent. So only when Z gives acknowledgement, Y can file a case. There was an interesting case law over here. Dunlop pneumatic tires versus Selfridge. Now Dunlop was the manufacturer of tires. Okay, I'll write it over here for you. So Dunlop was the manufacturer of tires. They entered into an agreement with various dealers, one of whom was Dew and Company. So they entered into an agreement with various dealers that you will not sell the tires at below the retail price. So we will tell you the price and that will be the minimum that you will recover. You cannot sell tires at below this recommended retail price. Please enter into a similar agreement with all your retailers. So Dew entered into an agreement with all the retailers, one of whom was Selfridge. So they said that you will not sell the tires at below the recommended retail price. However, Selfridge sold few tires at below the retail price. Dunlop filed a case against Selfridge. Can Dunlop sue Selfridge? Why no? There is a contract between Dunlop and Dew. There is a contract between Dew and Selfridge. Yes. So there is a contract between Dunlop and Dew and Selfridge. If Selfridge has sold few tires at below the recommended retail price, Dew can sue Selfridge. Dunlop cannot sue Selfridge because Dunlop is stranger to contract, and stranger to contract cannot sue. So if Selfridge has sold few tires at below the recommended retail price, Dunlop will not be able to file a case against Selfridge. Dew has a contract with Selfridge, so Dew will sue Selfridge. How to distinguish between stranger to contract and stranger to consideration? I had discussed with you. Stranger to contract cannot sue. Stranger to consideration can sue. Stranger to consideration, he becomes a stranger because there is some kind of contract. Like we studied in Chinaya versus Ramaya, there was some kind of contract. And because of that contract, you are receiving benefit. If you fail to receive the benefit, you can file a case. There are certain exceptions in this case. These are the circumstances where stranger can sue. So these are exceptions to the rule that stranger cannot sue. In other words, we are now going to discuss the circumstances where stranger can sue. The first one is in case of a trust. Now let's say that A has transferred certain property to be held by him in trust for C. So he's saying that I am giving you some money. Please keep it in trust for C. So B is going to keep it as a trustee, and C over here is the beneficiary. Okay. So A has transferred some property to B to be held by him in trust for C. What if B fails to pay that money to C? Can C file a case? That is our area of discussion. Now, A has given that money to B, so there is a contract between A and B. There is no contract with C. C is the beneficiary. He is a third party. He is a stranger. But because the contract is for his benefit and the trust is created, law says that beneficiary can sue. So beneficiary, that is a person for whom the benefit is, that trust is created, he may enforce the contract even though he is not a party to the contract. So the contract is between A and B, that you will hold that money in trust for C. So there is a contract between A and B. C, the beneficiary, is actually a stranger. But because the contract is for his benefit and it is a trust is created. Students, how will you understand in the exam whether this is a question of exception or not? You should find these words like trust, family, settlement, assignment, marriage contract. So try to find these words and that will give you a hint that they are talking about exception. Generally, a theory question is asked, but yes, they may ask a case-based question. Generally, theory is asked, but nothing stops the institute from asking case-based questions also. In case of family settlement, the persons who are not a party to the settlement, even they can enforce the contract. What are my key points over here? Agreement can be enforced by members of the family who were originally not a party to the settlement. Daughter and her husband, they entered into a contract with father that we will maintain our mother, you please transfer all your property in our name. After transferring the property, daughter and husband refused to maintain the mother. Father died. Can mother sue the daughter and husband? Now see, the contract was for this maintenance, etc., was between daughter and her husband with the father. Mother, in this case, is actually a stranger to contract. Don't you agree? The contract was actually between daughter and the father. Mother, if you see, is actually a stranger, but because it's a case of family settlement, the persons who were originally not a party to the settlement, even they can enforce the contract. Next, we have in case of certain marriage contracts or arrangement, like in case of HUF, if some money is kept aside for, let's say, marriage of a female, or it is kept aside for some elderly person, like for his medical reasons or for education of a female child. So even though they are not a party to that contract, they may still enforce the contract. So my key points are that some money is kept aside for the elderly person, for the education marriage of a female, then the person for whose benefit this arrangement is made, they can enforce the contract. Assignment of contract. Assignment means to transfer. Okay? Assignment means to transfer. Let's say, for example, that X has obtained an insurance policy from an insurance company. Now he wants loan. So he went to the bank. The bank says, I want security. So he says, already you take this insurance policy. When you surrender it, there is some value you will get. So you can keep this insurance policy with you. X assigned the insurance policy to the bank. Okay, they said that you take this insurance policy and give us loan against it. The bank in this case is the assignee. Now, what if X fails to repay the loan? What will the bank do? The bank will surrender the policy and get money against it. Now, it is worth discussing that the contract is actually between X and the insurance company. Okay, let me highlight that for you. The contract is actually between X and insurance company. If you see the bank, he's actually a stranger. But because the benefit is assigned to him, he is the assignee. Therefore, assignee can sue. So here, even though bank is stranger, he can file a case. Estoppel by acknowledgement of liability or part performance thereof. See, estoppel means that the person is not actually the owner. He is not actually the partner. He is considered just like a partner, just like an agent. He's just like the owner. Okay. Now, Y gave 10,000 rupees to X to be given to Z. Now, why will someone give money? Because there is a contract between Y and Z, and Y needs to pay money to Z. X says, I'm going near Z's house, I will pay it to him. So Y gives him 10,000. So there is a contract. Okay, there is a contract between Y and Z. There is a contract between Y and Z, wherein Y has to pay money to Z, so he's giving it to X to be given to Z. Now, X in this case gives acknowledgement to Z. Listen, Z, I am holding the money for you. Now, we just discussed that the person who gives the acknowledgement is considered as our agent. So, he is agent of Z. Now, what if X fails to pay? Can Z sue X? Yes. See, Z doesn't have a contract with X, but because X has given acknowledgement, he is considered as agent and we can sue our agent. So yes, Z can file case against X. So there is a contract between Y and Z. X is actually a stranger, but because he has given acknowledgement, he is considered as our agent and we can sue our agent. Next, we have covenant running with the land. Covenants are nothing but conditions, and because here we are discussing with the land, these are conditions which are tied to the use of land. Like A owns a piece of land which can be used for church purpose only and no other purpose. Two farmers, they own adjoining pieces of land and they agree that we will never develop it for commercial use. We will always use it for agriculture. So this is also how land is to be used. See, the land is burdened with a covenant. Burdened means that these covenants are attached to the use of land. The land is burdened with these covenants. These covenants are so attached to the land that when the land is sold to someone else, it goes along with the covenant. Land is given with the covenants. So these conditions, they run with the land. When the land is sold, the land and covenants, they go to the new owner together. These conditions, they are binding on current as well as future owners. The future owner has never entered into a contract creating these covenants, but even then he is bound by these covenants. So these covenants, they run with the land. It means that even though the new owner had not entered into a contract accepting the covenant, but he is still bound to follow, to abide by the covenant. So these are my key points. I have to write this in the exam. Okay. So you need to learn this properly. Now, X and Y, they agreed that we will never use this land for commercial purpose. We will always use it for agriculture. X sold this land to Z. Later on, Y started using the land for commercial purpose. Can Z sue? Now see, the contract creating the covenant was between X and Y. Z, if you see, is actually a stranger. He never created those covenants. But because the land is given to him with a covenant, he can sue. Okay. So what if, ma'am, later on Z starts using it for commercial purpose? Then Y can sue. Next, we have contracts made by agent. Does agent enter into contract for himself, or is he doing it for the principal? Yes, of course, he's doing it for the principal. So we have principal, agent, and third party. Okay. Now, agent is actually entering into contract with a third party, but on behalf of the principal. So it is actually the principal who is liable. So the contract is between agent and third party, but agent is acting on behalf of the principal. Principal, even though he's a stranger, he can sue, he can take action against the third party. So principal can enforce the contracts if the agent has acted within the scope of authority. It means the principal is liable for all the authorized acts of the agent. Okay. So principal, you can write down, principal is liable to third party for all acts, for all, let's say, authorized acts. Okay. For all the authorized acts of agent. So principal is liable to the third party for all the authorized acts of the agent. This is separate over here. You don't confuse yourself with the exam. The principal is liable to the third party for all the authorized acts of the. So what were the circumstances where stranger can sue? In case of trust, in case of family settlement, in case of marriage contracts or arrangements, assignment of contract, estoppel by acknowledgement of liability or part performance thereof, and covenant running with land. also contracts made by agent. The last part of this chapter, and also very, very, very important, it is asked as theory question wherein you will have to write everything. Plus, if you notice, many case-based questions are asked from this chapter. Many case-based. Okay? So section 25, the section number is important. If a theory question is asked, students, you need to write the examples only for the first 3 provisions. No need to write examples for the remaining provisions. But for first 3 provisions, you need to write examples also. Now, we have studied that an agreement without consideration is void. We have studied that there must be consideration for both the parties, yes or no? We have studied that there must be consideration for both the parties. But there are certain contracts which are valid even without consideration. Ma'am, without consideration means there won't be consideration for both. No, that is not what I mean. I mean that even if there is consideration for just one party, the following contracts are still valid. So in all these contracts, you will find that there is consideration for just one party. Even then, the contract is valid. The first is agreements made on account of natural love and affection. Now, husband promised to pay 25,000 rupees to wife, but this is domestic agreement. That is why he is promising by a registered deed. Registered means it has to be in writing. So it was in writing, it was registered. Law says there is consideration for the wife, 25,000. But husband is not getting anything in return. Ideally, this should not be a valid contract. However, if the agreement is in writing, it is registered based on natural love and affection between persons standing in near relation. Near relation means generally blood relation or marriage. If all these conditions are satisfied, then the agreement is valid even if there is consideration for just one party. So these are cumulative. Cumulative means all the conditions have to be satisfied. You need to learn this by heart. I have already underlined the keywords for you. So what are the keywords? Agreement must be in writing. It must be registered under law based on natural love and affection between persons standing in near relation. Near relation means relation of blood or marriage. Then the agreement is valid even if there is consideration for just one party. But what if husband and wife quarrel? Husband promises to pay 10,000 rupees as maintenance to wife. It is in writing, it is registered. It is between persons in near relation. But is it based on natural love and affection? See, there may be love and affection between them as husband and wife. There may be love and affection between them. But is this agreement based on love and affection, or is it based on quarrels? It is based on quarrels, right? So this agreement is not valid. There is no consideration. So just because they are in near relation does not necessarily mean that there is natural love and affection. Next, we have agreements to compensate for past voluntary service. This is also very important for case-based. This is also important for case-based. So this can be asked as a case-based question also. Now, A found B's purse and he returns it to him. The act is over. Then B promises. Now, if he's promising, it means he's entering into a contract. Now he promises to pay 500 rupees as reward. So B is promising to compensate for A's past voluntary service. Now, he had not asked him to find. A found the purse on his own. So in this case, if A found the purse, it's a voluntary act which is already done. But B wants to compensate. All right. So in this case, when there is a promise, it means there is a contract. Now in this contract, A is getting consideration 500, but B is not getting anything in return. Law says that if the services were rendered voluntarily, it has been rendered for the promisor. Promisor was in existence at the time when the services were rendered, and he intended to compensate the promisee. So here B is showing intention. He wants to compensate. Yes, it is not that he's saying thank you and leaving. He wants to reward him. Then it is valid even if there is consideration for just A. Ma'am, isn't it past consideration for B? Students, for past consideration, the act must be done at the request of the promisor. Here it is not done at the request of the promisor. Here the promisee is acting voluntarily. Ideally, when the person acts voluntarily, we don't have any obligation to pay him, because we had studied in consideration that for valid consideration, the act must be done at the request of the promisor. There is no consideration if the act is done voluntarily. But here we are saying, even if the act is done voluntarily and you want to compensate, then we are allowing you to do so, even though in the contract B, you are not getting anything in return. These 4 conditions are also cumulative, and you need to learn this because it is asked as a case-based question. The services must be rendered voluntarily. Services have been rendered for the promisor. The promisor must be in existence when the services were rendered. He has intention to compensate the promisee. So if all these conditions are satisfied, then it is valid. Promise to pay a time-barred debt. See, time-barred debt is a debt which is so old that it is legally not enforceable. But if the other party wants to pay, like say for example that A owed 10,000 rupees to B and he has to pay this since many years, it has now become time-barred. Now one day on his own, he promises to pay 6,000 to B. We started analyzing. See, if you're promising, it means there is a contract, there is consideration for B. But A, you are not receiving anything in the contract. You cannot say that, ma'am, he received something in the past. That was a separate contract. In this contract, he's promising to pay 6,000 rupees. So here, he's not getting anything in return. Law says that even though you are not getting anything in return, this will still be a valid contract if it is made in writing, it is signed by the promisor or his authorized agent, and it relates to a time-barred debt. So if all these conditions, they are satisfied, okay, you have to learn this also. If all these conditions are satisfied, then yes, contract is valid even if there is consideration for just one party. What are the conditions? It must be in writing, it must be signed by the promisor or his agent, and the payment relates to a time-barred debt. Next we have contract of agency. No consideration, no contract is required to appoint an agent. Completed gift. Gift doesn't require consideration because you cannot ask for return gift, no? Yeah, we do ask, but you cannot. Completed means that I have given a gift. Now, if I give you 5,000 rupees, I cannot say, what is my return gift? You don't expect anything in return, no? So, a completed gift, completed means I have already given. That does not require consideration. Gifts actually made by the donor, actually made means they are completed. Gifts actually made by the donor and accepted by the donee, they are valid even without consideration. But law says you don't even need natural love and affection in your relation. You can give a gift to any person. The only requirement is that the gift must be completed gift. I am just giving a promise. Arey, I will pay. I will give you a gift on your birthday. I will give. No, that's just a promise. I have not given anything, I have not received anything, that there is no consideration, that will not make a valid contract. So the gift must be complete. I have highlighted the keywords for you. You can also highlight this. There is no need for natural love and affection or near relationship. Okay. So gifts which are actually made by the donor, that is, they are completed, it does not require consideration. Mere promise that I will give, I will gift, that is not valid contract. X transferred property to Y by a duly written and registered deed as gift. Yeah, that's valid even if there is no consideration from Y. A only promised to give 5,000. No, that's just a promise. It's not a valid contract. X gifted, he gave 5,000 rupees to his friend's mother. Nearness of relation is not required, no, for gift. Even though friend's mother is not related to X, he can still give a gift. Natural love and affection is not required in this case. Very similar is charity, contribution to charity. Now, if I have given 5,000 rupees to a flood victim, I cannot say, now what will you give me in return? I cannot expect anything in return. It's charity, no? So, when you give a charity, you cannot expect anything in return. It is valid even without consideration. Anything given in charity is valid. You cannot expect something in return. So, it is valid even if there is consideration for just one party. But a mere promise to give charity, I will give, I promise I will give, that is not consideration. There is no consideration for both the parties. That's not valid. Now, just one small point over here. Let's say that X promised to give 5,000 rupees to Y for repairs of a church. Okay? He has only promised, he has not given anything. Ideally, this is not a valid contract. But on the basis of this promise, Y has incurred 3,000 rupees to buy labor material for repairs. Then law says, if on the basis of your promise, Y has already incurred some expense, then X, you will have to give him at least 3,000. At least that much you'll have to give him. But ma'am, what if he spends 30,000? No. We'll give only 5,000. That is the amount we had promised. We'll not give more than that. So actual or promised, whichever is less. Actual 3,000, promised 5,000, whichever is less. Actual 30,000, promised 5,000, whichever is less, 5,000. So if the party has done something, they have incurred expense, we'll pay. But if they have not done nothing, then we will not give anything because it is just a promise. So charity also requires completed charity. Completed charity is valid. It does not require consideration. But just a promise, that is not valid. And if on the basis of promise you have incurred some expense, then we will pay at least whatever expenses you have incurred. Next we have bailment. Bailment means to deliver. If it is a gratuitous bailment, gratuitous means we are not expecting anything in return. In case of gratuitous bailment, it's valid even if there is no consideration. Like X kept goods in Y's warehouse, his friend's warehouse. He said, I will collect it in 2 months' time. X asked him, how much should I give you? You are doing some work for me. How much should I pay you? He said, no, you are my best friend. I'll not take any money from you. It's fair enough. Okay, if you don't want, that's fine. So for a gratuitous bailment, gratuitous means you're not expecting anything in return. He's your friend. You're just helping him. So no consideration is required. Even then it will be a valid contract of bailment. So what are the exceptions? The first is in case of natural love and affection. Agreement to compensate for past voluntary services. Promise to pay time-barred debt. Contract of agency. Completed gift requires no consideration. Bailment and contribution to charity. So students, these were the exceptions to section 25. And with this, we also come to an end of the chapter consideration. So we have now discussed 2 elements in detail. One is offer and acceptance and the other is consideration. I hope you were able to recall all the concepts. Yes, it was a quick revision. I highlighted the keywords for you. I also gave you an idea of the kind of questions that can be asked on this part. All right, students. So do one thing now, go through the entire chapter, start learning, and also solve the questions from my compiler. I had shown the compiler to you. This is a compilation of all the past exam questions, study material, RTP, MTP questions arranged unit wise. You will find a lot of marking in my copy because I discuss each and every question in my regular lectures. So see, these are the kind of questions that can be asked. A theory question can be asked on this chapter. Mostly you will find theory, but a case-based question can also be asked. In my compiler, you will find the answers are divided into 4 parts: provisions, facts, analysis, and conclusion. So you will know how to start the answer, how to end the answer, what is to be written, how much is to be written. The left hand margin is blank for you to write pointers in this manner. So this book is updated. It includes all the past exam questions, study material, RTP, MTP questions arranged unit wise. You can purchase this book from my website capreetyagarwal.com. Students, if you are enjoying these lectures, and I'm very sure that they will help you also, so do share this with your friends and they can purchase the podcast and the books from my website capreetyagarwal.com. Students, if you have any doubts, you can also approach me. You can contact me on my mobile number. It is mentioned on my website capreetyagarwal.com. All right, so I take your leave, and in my next session I will start with unit 3. I have divided unit 3 into 3 parts. We are going to study the other essential elements of a valid contract. So there I have divided it into other essential elements like capacity of the parties, pre-consent, and void agreement. So we will study it in various parts so that it is easy for us to study the related provisions together. Okay, bye bye guys, take care and keep studying, keep revising, happy learning. Consider this to be your strong subject. Keep a very positive mindset as far as law is concerned. Okay, chalo, I'll see you next time with a new unit.
Thank you, students. Thank you for watching this episode till the end. We have now completed the unit on consideration. In my next episode, I shall discuss the other essential elements of contract. Share these podcasts with your friends preparing for CA Foundation Law. You can also purchase these lectures from my website capreetyagarwal.com. We also have an excellent test series and mock test papers containing new questions as per the latest pattern of ICAI. These papers are checked by a chartered accountant and I personally review them and give feedback and suggest improvements on call. So do visit my website capreetyagarwal.com and I'll see you in the next episode with more interesting concepts.
You are listening to Law Ka Audionama by CA Preeti Agarwal, simplifying law.